Hi, this is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. In this episode, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics when it comes to change work, and that is provocation artistry. Specifically, this video is about how to use provocation artistry in change work, in coaching, in therapy. And I'm going to illustrate how you can use provocation artistry in coaching and therapy and change work by sharing with you a actual case study from my practice. Uh, this particular case was from 2002, and at the time I had never ever seen a anorexia client, so this was completely new to me. This particular client studied in Berlin, Germany, and her parents had some money. So she had for the last 7 years seen experts, psychologists on eating disorders all over Europe with zero results. And this was my first ever anorexia case. So I met her parents socially, and they described what their daughter was going through, and I offered to work with her, and they agreed, and the daughter agreed. So I made a deal with the parents and the daughter that I would work with her until we got the results. And I spent essentially a week with her, spending hours with her every day. Now, at the time in 2002, she was 172 centimeters high and 39 kilograms. So she was all the time kind of balancing 1 kilo above what was the rate for being admitted to the hospital on an involuntary basis. And her parents were terrified, and so were the people who cared about her. So I knew that to work with this woman, I would have to be unconventional and to break her patterns and to break the usual frames. So the first thing I did was I gave her a pretty lengthy writing task before she came in. And I knew she was conscientious, so that she was likely to do it. And one reason for doing that is that I wanted her to invest in the process. And I also made her kind of book up, um, not plan anything else for the days that we spent together, so that she was completely dedicated to the process. Now, by coincidence, my grandmother had died not that long before uh, this session. So I had quite a bit of materials from the funeral home laying around. So the first day I met her in my office, I met her in a dark suit. And I had a lot of materials and brochures and stuff like that from the funeral home. And I looked at her and I, with complete sincerity, said, "So, do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? Like, what arrangements do you want to make in regards to how your body is handled after you die?" And first she just looked at me and she kind of smiled and thought it was a game, but I kept it up. I kept it up and got really detailed about the decomposition process of the body and the importance of making these arrangements. And I would show her various caskets, on pictures and stuff like that. And after a while, she started crying. And it seemed to be a real cry, like not just, crocodile tears, but a real cry. So I knew that I was getting to her in a sense, like there was some emotion being activated. But instead of comforting her or saying that I was sorry, I immediately went into, so I call her Caroline, which is not her real name, but I call her Caroline. So I said to her, so Caroline, how long have you been doing anorexia? And she perked up and she said, doing anorexia? You make it sound as if it's like doing gymnastics or ballet. And I said, well, it is. It's not a disease. It's not really something that you're suffering from. It's something that you're doing. It's an activity that you're engaging in, a particular way of thinking and relating to feeling and behaving. And she kind of reluctantly bought into that frame. Now, this is a very provocative move. It's an honest move, but it's a provocative move because almost all therapists view this as a disease of sorts, or an illness, as something to be treated. And in that sense, the person who's suffering is a victim. I did not buy into the mental illness frame or the victim frame. So I framed this as something that she was doing, a set of choices, a set of processes, which is often quite provocative to people who are used to being treated as if they're not accountable. And I started asking her, well, given that you're doing this, what is it that you get out of it? What are the payoffs or the benefits of engaging in this activity called anorexia? And she was quite straightforward in that it gave her a sense of accomplishment, of mastering her own body and being in control, and that it made her feel special. And I joked with her a bit and said, well, how special is it to, in a blindfolded way, steer yourself towards your own death and pretend that you're not doing it? Well, this is the most common cause of death when it comes to young women in Norway. How special is that? So I went into this whole thing where I kind of reversed all her presuppositions, and she left in a state of confusion. Now, I knew that she prided herself on being very conscientious and in control and in control of her body, and that she had in the past done a lot of exercise. But I knew that in the particular state that she was in right now, she wasn't able to do it. So I had her meet me at the gym for her next session in kind of tights and, short outfits so that people could see her bones sticking out and stuff like that. And I took her to the treadmill and I said, a young woman your age should be able to run. I can't remember the exact numbers I had looked at, but should be able to run so fast, so long on the treadmill without really a problem. So she went at it, and she was only able to last a few minutes before she more or less collapsed on the treadmill. And she really pushed herself. So I had to assist her out of the gym and essentially dragged her and made a show out of it, which was kind of embarrassing to her. And I was joking with her on how she kind of performed like an old lady and being out of control and this sort of stuff. And then she saw this poster at the gym where someone advertised a massage, and she said, "Oh, after a workout like that, I could use a massage." And I said, they don't offer knuckle massage here yet. It's not that sort of place. And she got kind of insulted by that, but I just kind of laughed it off, and I sent her to the library with the task of finding 3 biographies of accomplished people and to write down what made them special and what did not make them special, and to really do that in writing. And this was a task to be done over time, but I had her do that for several hours, every day after our sessions, reading the biographies and getting into this sort of writing. The next day after that, I took her to a restaurant. Now, before I went to the restaurant, I had tipped off the waiter that I would be bringing a special guest, and I prepaid her meal, which was supposed to be a big steak, which I knew that she wouldn't eat. And I paid him extra to do a little stunt. And he was reluctant to begin with, but I told him the nature of my work and that he would likely contribute to saving a life. And as a result of that, I kind of won him over. So we went to the restaurant, which was kind of a nice restaurant. It was good weather, sitting outside and stuff like that. And he came over with this big steak and just said, honestly, you need this. And I was just feeling glee, and having a belly laugh, and she was insulted, and I was kind of teasing her, and we were kind of bantering with this, you know. Of course, it makes sense to take someone who's struggling with an eating disorder to a restaurant and to hire some actors and to do some of the work live, just to kind of push their buttons and get them into the context. Now, I have to credit my friend Ross Jeffries, the seduction guru, with this. He used to have this thing called the crappy sketch artist thing that he would do to seduce women. So I had a couple of friends there who pretended to be artists. So my friend was pretending to kind of be sketching Caroline and to look at her and to be very content and to kind of study her and give her looks of admiration and to kind of flirt with her a little bit. And Caroline picked up on this, and she looked at me with pride and she said, well, see, men do find me attractive, and my friend was continuing to sketch her. And then he went over to her and she said, excuse me, miss, your beauty has inspired me to make art, and may you enjoy. And he gave her the thing and he kind of took his bow and, stepped backwards. And she smiled and she looked at the thing. And what she saw was, a crappy sketch artist drawing of like a skeleton, right? Said Auschwitz, 1944, and will Mrs. Super Slim Shady please get some clothes on? People are losing their appetites. And I of course laughed myself silly with this, and she got so insulted. She kind of found some humor in it as well. And she said, well, this is clearly not fair. You know everyone in this crappy little city. And I said, fine, we'll go to a different city. So I spontaneously got her in the car. We drove for 30 minutes to a different city called Drammen, which is a Norwegian city. I said, I don't know anyone here. And we started walking like one of the main streets in Drammen. And what I did, I started walking up to people and I said, hi, my name is Peter. I am from the Norwegian National Anorexia Association. We're doing a little bit of field testing where we're taking patients out into the streets to see how regular people's perceptions differ. Caroline here is thinking of losing another 20 pounds. And what do you think about that? And of course, the first guy was horrified. Was like, no, 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 you can't do that. You must not do that. And then we asked the second guy, and incredibly enough, this guy was supportive and encouraged her and said that she looked great and kind of flirted with her a bit, and she was super happy. And I thought, man, what an idiot. Is he looking to get laid, or what's wrong with this guy? But it was actually great that he did that, because it kind of gave Caroline her confidence back. And she looked at me with kind of a coy smile and she said, it's Caroline 1 and Jurgen 1. And I said, fine. So we went for it. And the total score ended up being Jurgen 19 and Caroline 1 until we got back into the car and drove back, where she was like really, really dejected. And I could sense at that time that something deep was going on, like something was happening and shifting internally. Now, one thing that her father had told me was that she was a bit snobbish and a bit upper class-ish in her attitudes, and that she really hated drugs and drug addicts, right? So I would pick her up. I arranged to pick her up at the train station when she came in the next day. And what I did is I had a friend of mine dress as a drug addict, with the baggy pants and the sunglasses and the plastic bags and stuff like that. And my friend did a wonderful job. Like he looked like he'd completely hit rock bottom. So I made sure to be a little bit late, and my friend approached Caroline, and said, hey, girl, do you want to buy something, or do you have something to sell me, or something like that. And she had responded quite predictably, like, do I look like that? Like that. So, oh, come on, you're one of us. And he tried to kind of be cozy with her, and she was just horrified by by that filthy drug addict, thinking that she was one of them, and wanting to kind of associate and banter and identify. And when I picked her up, she was kind of angry, and she said, "Well, has Peter from the Anorexia Association been active again today?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, it's this drug addict." And I said, "Well, for fuck's sake, look at your arms. You look like a skeleton. And you're at the train station, you got drug addicts, and what the hell do you expect? Like get a grip." So I pretended to be a bit insulted, of these accusations. And as we were driving, I was doing my best to not burst out laughing. I looked at Caroline, and I said, this drug addict, describe him. How did it look like? And she was like, man, he'd really he'd really hit rock bottom. Uh, uh, I, I really had to do my best to not burst out laughing, with some sadistic joy on my friend's behalf. Now, when my friend, the drug addict, left the train station, he had seen another friend coming driving with his uncle. So he kind of hid, in a back street to change his clothes. And this other friend called Kenneth, had said, Joe, is that you? And he kind of tried to hide. And Joe, is that you? And he saw him changing his clothes. And my friend Joe said, well, Kenneth, it's not quite what it looks like. I was kind of helping Jurgen do this little stunt, and he was like, yeah, well, obviously didn't believe him, right? So I had the opportunity to have a lot of fun at my friend's expense. When I later drove to my friend's place, I spoke to his mother, and she was a psychiatric nurse, and she was horrified by this little stunt. Like, what if her feelings get hurt? I was like, what if she dies? And I know in my core that I haven't done what I can do to help awaken her. Like, what about that? Like, screw her feelings. Now, what also helped was that a week later, or a couple of weeks later in Berlin, something very similar happened, which by just random pure luck, which kind of helped, which kind of helped to make a change. Now, when she came back into my office, I had her lay out the rules of the anorexia game, like how she did it, when she did it, and what the benefits were. And what I noticed with her, and what I've noticed with others too, is that it's very often a power game. Like, as a young woman, she ended up having a sense of power over her family that no young woman should ever have. Her parents were terrified of losing her, terrified of whether she would, lose 1 kilogram and be admitted to the hospital. Her physicians and psychologists felt powerless while she was kind of calling the shots. So this was to a large extent a power trip. It was also a great way of being significant. In an accomplished family, one way of being significant, of course, is to have the problem that never gets solved and that no expert can truly help her with. She felt a sense of control and achievement in that she had mastered her body, and kind of overcome her natural inclinations to eat, and had kind of designed her own. There was a sense of excitement in it, in just playing that game. And also, kind of paradoxically, a sense of stability and security, because again, there are unwritten rules for how to treat and relate to the so-called mentally ill. So people have a tendency to either avoid you or to buy into the premises, and to treat you like this poor thing who just really can't help it, while you're kind of on this power trip simultaneously. So I challenged her to see that her sense of power was still, and her sense of significance and achievement was still largely conformist, very common in our society, and very much dependent upon other people responding in a particular way. So I was able to help her to see that at this point in her life, it would actually be more exciting, demand more of her. Like, because I said to her, you've mastered anorexia, you've done it for 7 years, you know how to do this, you're used to it. But living without anorexia, living without that label and that role, that's a challenge. That's exciting. That's something that would actually be an achievement, because you don't know how to do that. You don't know how to be that person. And that would be true power over yourself. So I challenged her to make a new game for herself where she felt excitement, a sense of power, a sense of significance, and a sense of achievement, only in ways that required more of her and were not destructive to her body and did not so much rely upon her environment. And she made a full recovery. So I did a quick tune-up session with her for that and something else back in 2010. So between 2002 2010, I know for a fact that she did remarkably well. Lost touch with her. I don't know what she's doing these days, but at least for 8 years, I know that this was a hugely successful case. And here's something interesting to notice as well. When she came back to Berlin and gained weight, ended up at a normal weight, changed her clothes, her wardrobe, her lifestyle, a lot of her physicians, psychologists, experts were stunned because they could see the changes, and they were so curious to know what had happened and who she had seen. And once she told them that it was not a medical doctor, psychiatrist, or a psychologist, but this NLP/hypnosis guy in Norway, none of them, literally none of them, were interested at all to hear anything else. Like, that was like an insult of sorts. So that kind of says something, I think, about where a lot of people in those professions operate. So this is, of course, just one example of how you might use provocation artistry with a particular client. You can read about this particular case in my first book, Provocative Hypnosis, that I released in 2008. Story is called Caroline the Anorectic. There's a bunch of other cases there as well. If you want more information on how to strategically use provocation when seeing clients, my second book, Provocative Suggestions from 2015, I don't have a copy right here, but is also full of provocative cases from my practice. So I hope this was useful. Hope this was inspiring. If you have any questions, comments, observations, please leave them where you found the video. Know that I see clients professionally. I see people from all over the world on Skype. If you're looking to make changes, you can reach me at provocativehypnosis.com. You can also reach me at the exact same place for mentoring or seminars. All right, thanks for listening.